Good morning, and welcome to the Chamber's virtual breakfast meeting, coming to you live from the venue Uptown at the Best Western in Kingston. I'm Dave Gagnon, Chairman of the Ulster County Regional Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors. Wherever you are this morning, I'd like to ask you to please stand and join me in the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you for joining in the Ulster Chamber for our monthly virtual breakfast featuring the candidates from the New York State Senate from the 42nd and 46th districts. A special thanks to Radio Kingston for providing technical support this morning. Before we get to our upcoming events, I'd like to thank everyone who took part in the Chamber's inaugural virtual Buy Local Expo earlier this month. This new form for our popular Buy Local Expo gave Chamber members a chance to take viewers behind the scenes of their businesses, live or with a pre-recorded video. It was a great event. We were delighted to have more than 2,000 local residents tuned in to watch our virtual expo on our Facebook page. Special thanks to our presenting sponsor, Nacarado Insurance, and our principal sponsor, the UPS Store. Now, here's what's happening in October. The Chamber's next virtual breakfast meeting will take place right here at the venue Uptown at the Best Western Plus on Tuesday, October 20th, starting at 9 a.m. It will be our second Meet the Candidates breakfast meeting, and appearing live will be incumbent Congressman Antonio Delgado and challenger Kyle Vanderwater. We'll give the candidates a chance to offer their views and opinions on current events, locally, nationally, and globally, and then they'll be answering questions. Don't miss this opportunity to see and hear the candidates for the Congress for the New York's 19th District. Our October 20th virtual breakfast meeting is sponsored by Hudson Valley Credit Union and will broadcast live from the venue Uptown at the Best Western Plus Kingston with technical support, again, from Radio Kingston. Later that same week, the Chamber of Commerce and the Ulster County Economic Development Alliance will be hosting our virtual Business Recognition Award celebration. Join us on Thursday, October 22nd, starting at 6 p.m. as we honor the top business leaders, businesses, and organizations for 2020. Our honorees include Business Person of the Year, Clayton Van Cleek; Business of the Year, SUNY Ulster; Small Business of the Year, Town and Country Liquors; Emerging Young Leader, Nicole Foucault; Hospitality Business, Wiltwick Golf Club; Commitment to the Community Award, People's Place; and the Heritage Award will go to Kenco. For the first time in 2020, the prestigious Len Kane Heart of Ulster County Award is not going to go to one single individual, but instead it will go to the many residents of Ulster County for their work and sacrifices during the COVID-19 pandemic. This award will recognize all the amazing businesses, not-for-profit organizations, healthcare employees, frontline workers, and thousands of others, along with our local leaders in the public sector who work tirelessly to bring Ulster County and our local small business community through the worst public health emergency in 100 years. Ulster County Executive Pat Ryan will be accepting that award on behalf of the people of Ulster County. Be sure to watch this celebration October 22nd at 6 p.m. There are some excellent sponsorship opportunities. Contact the Chamber for more information. Finally, the Ulster Chamber Foundation is set to host the Class of 2020 Leadership Graduation and Hall of Fame inductions. Mark down the date and join the Leadership Ulster virtually on Monday, November 16th, starting at 5:30 p.m. Class graduates will celebrate their achievements and will be honoring our 2020 Hall of Fame inductees, Crystal Jacob, Rick Manti, and John McHugh. We can hope you can all join us on November 16th. Now to introduce our program this morning, here is our spectacularly stylish Chamber President, Mr. Ward Todd.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being with us. I wish I could fully explain to those watching on Facebook Live how terribly, terribly eerie, I guess, and sad it is not to have a room of 300 people here with us this morning. But we thank you for joining us virtually, and we thank you for your support of the Chamber. We have worked very hard to be an advocate for all of the small businesses in our region, always, but in particular these last few months, whatever we could do to make it easy for businesses, many of whom are still struggling today. So we are with you, united today. And you can help everyone watching right now understand that small businesses are the backbone of our local economy. So support your favorite stores, shops, and restaurants. Shop local, buy local, keep it local all the time. That is our continuing urge. It's time to thank our virtual breakfast sponsor next. We're delighted to have a great relationship as a corporate sponsor with our friends at Nuvance Health, and we'd like to introduce Denise George this morning. Denise?
Good morning. Thank you, Todd. Pleasure to be here on behalf of Nuvance Health and Northern Dutchess Hospital. I know this is a virtual breakfast, but I can assure you there is no food here for us. So certainly we do miss that. So just like all of your businesses, certainly we have experienced tremendous stress, challenges, and change in our business. Although COVID right now appears under control in our region, we are seeing some isolated surges, particularly in the lower Hudson Valley. We are ready if there is another surge. However, another surge would be confounded really by the flu season that we're entering. So get your flu shot. The CDC, and I don't believe this is fake news, we certainly do believe in science at the hospital, has estimated that over 40% of us have put off getting care during the pandemic. We either totally deferred it and delayed it, or we just avoided it. This has really led to a problem in our community. The outcomes, some of our health outcomes are deteriorating as a result. Particularly, we're seeing delay in the diagnosis of cancer, which is very concerning because that is treatable. And certainly, people are having their strokes and their heart attacks at home. My message here right now is it is safe to come to the hospital. So what is Nuvance and Northern Dutchess doing? Basically, we all know the drill now. It's masks, it's hand hygiene, it's social distancing, and it's scrupulous cleaning in between our patients. It is safe to go to your doctor. It is safe to go to the hospitals, urgent care. Certainly, we did not let a good crisis go to waste. And so, like many hospitals across the country, we have amped up our telemedicine or virtual visits. So if those people that are uncomfortable going to an office can get a virtual visit in many cases. And fortunately, the payers now recognize that as a legitimate visit, and we get paid for that. So basically, testing is more available. There's still some issues with it, but it certainly is more available. And the collective medical community, we've certainly gotten down the protocols. They keep changing, but between remdesivir, steroids, fluids, high flow oxygen, we've got it down. So we are hoping things get back to normal soon. And so what else are we working on at Nuvance and Northern Dutchess? So specifically, I'm really excited to tell you that in February, we did open the Macy's, the former Macy's building into a Nuvance multi-specialty center. And lousy time to open because it was February, but here we are, we're open. And it's a great facility. We're really proud that we could refurbish or repurpose the Macy's into this wonderful facility that offers urgent care, laboratory services, full modalities of radiology, and in September we also opened physical therapy and occupational therapy. So those people that are afraid to go into a hospital to get an MRI can go there as well. So we're really happy about that. I am particularly excited. This is Breast Awareness Month. It's October now, almost October. And we have recruited a breast surgeon, a fellowship-trained breast surgeon, Dr. Lisa Curcio, who will be practicing in that center in Kingston, as well as over in Northern Dutchess Hospital. So we're very excited to bring that. We've also been able to recruit another medical oncologist for our services to serve the community there. Northern Dutchess has something exciting that happened last month. This was also delayed, but we have opened cardiac catheterization, so interventional cardiology is now available at Northern Dutchess. Real quick word on the Vassar building. You're probably all part of Nuvance, Vassar. We will be opening that building. It is certainly a little behind schedule because of COVID, but it is scheduled to open in January. So anyway, happy to be here. Best of luck to the candidates, and everyone take care. Thank you.
Thank you, Denise, very much, and thank you for your partnership and your corporate sponsorship. We're delighted to work closely with New Vans Health. At this time, we would like to begin our broadcast and introduce our candidates and the districts that they are representing. The 46th Senate District. The seat is currently held by Senator George Amedure, who is retiring at the end of his current term. The candidates running to succeed him are Michelle Hinchey and Rich Amedure. And the 46th district includes the city of Kingston, towns of Esopus, Hurley, Kingston, Lloyd, Marbletown, Saugerties, Ulster, and Woodstock in Ulster County. The 42nd district includes incumbent Senator Jen Metzger and challenger Mike Martucci. The 42nd district includes the towns of Denning, Gardner, New Paltz, Rosendale, Shamgum, and Woolworthing here in Ulster County. Welcome to all the candidates. Thank you for being here, and good morning. So here's our format today. Each candidate will deliver a 2-minute opening statement. After those opening statements, we'll focus on questions from our members and viewers. Candidates will have 2 minutes to answer each question and 1 minute for rebuttal. You can email questions to ward@ulsterchamber.org, or you can post them on Facebook. All questions are to be about the issues in this campaign, and preferably questions that all candidates can answer. Speaking time will be monitored by the Chamber staff. There will be a sign when a candidate has 30 seconds remaining and when time has expired. We flipped a coin to determine the speaking order for opening statements, and the first to speak will be Michelle Hinchey, followed by Rich Amedure, then Mike Martucci, and then Jen Metzger, and the questions will follow. So we begin with Michelle Hinchey. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you so much, Ward and the Chamber, for having us today and for holding this important forum in such an extreme time. Thank you for offering this for all of your members. The Chamber is an incredibly important organization and has always been to our family. And in a time when so many of our small businesses are struggling themselves, you all have really stepped up in this moment in the middle of this crisis. So thank you for all of the work that you've done. I'm Michelle. I'm born and raised in Saugerties, went to Saugerties High School, and then graduated from the Industrial and Labor Relations School at Cornell in 2009. A time that, unfortunately, is not that dissimilar from what I think we're all about to go through, in the sense that it was the last recession. And finding a job in upstate and across the state at that time was especially hard. And I was fortunate enough to get an job from an internship that I had that set me off on a 10-year career path in communications, working for technology companies and media companies. But at the end of the day, I always felt like there was a lot more to do and to give back and to be involved, and specifically give back to my community and the community that raised me. And I started looking around a few years ago on how I would do that, and then my dad got sick. And he passed away in 2017 from a disease that requires extensive long-term care. And our family actually had to sell land to pay for his home care. That's a crash course in just how broken our healthcare system is. So in that time, I stayed on with the company I was with, because it afforded me the time to spend quality time with him, and also to get involved really in the Delgado campaign for Congress, which has affirmed for me even more that this is the work that I want to do, that I need to do, and that I should be doing. What's exciting to me about this seat is it's clear that we need new leadership. We need people in the majority conference and more upstate voices advocating and fighting for economic development, affordability, infrastructure investment, and to preserve our natural resources. So I thank you all so much for this forum, and I appreciate, and I look forward to taking questions.
Okay. Rich Amedure.
Good morning. Thank you, Ward Todd and the Ulster County Chamber of Commerce and the League of Women Voters for hosting us this morning. My name is Rich Amedure, and I'm running to serve as a state senator from the 46th District. I grew up in the 46th Senate District up in Catskill, and I made the choice to stay here and live as an adult. I live on a small farm in Rensselaerville in the hills of Albany County with my wife Ann of 30 years and my 2 adult children, Mike and Sarah. I never envisioned myself running for public office, but I've always been a public servant. After enlisting in the Army, I served as a brief stint as a union carpenter out of Saugerties. And after that, I became a New York State trooper. I served as a trooper in Ulster and Greene counties for the majority of my career. And recently, I retired after serving as the first vice president of the Troopers Union up in Albany. I've also served as a member of my town planning board for the last 15 years, with the last 5 being the chairman. I see this as an opportunity not only to continue my public service to the community, but to ensure a strong upstate voice to help change the direction our great state is headed in. Under one-party rule in Albany, the state is on a dangerous path. Bail and discovery reform legislation has left our communities less safe and secure. There is a tax and spend philosophy driven by New York City Democrats that has made it too expensive to live and do business here. Our economy and many of the industries that drove the upstate communities are struggling, especially after prolonged shutdowns due to the COVID-19 pandemic. My children, both of them live their lives, are making decisions about where they're going to start their lives and settle down. I would like it to be here. It's the community that I love and I spent my life working in. But with no economic opportunities and low public safety, why wouldn't they join the millions of other people that are leaving the state of New York for better opportunity elsewhere? I'm running for my family, I'm running for your family, and all our small business owners and small farm owners who are struggling. We need a balanced Albany, and we need a voice of reason sent to Albany to stand up against the New York City-dominated legislature and fight for the issues that affect us.
All right, that's the 46th district. We switch now to the 42nd district, and we begin with Mike Martucci. Mike?
Good morning. Thank you, Ward, and thank you to the Chamber for hosting this event. My name is Mike Martucci. I grew up in Orange County, in a small town, West Town, all the way at the end of Orange County, almost in New Jersey. And I was very blessed. I grew up on a family farm. It was my grandfather's farm, and my father and my parents grew up there. My sister and I grew up there as well. And I went to school at SUNY Orange and eventually went on to Marist College. I was a Red Fox. And much like Miss Hinchey, graduated just about at the worst time you could graduate, in my case, 2008. With very limited job opportunities, I did something that, looking back was pretty bold, but I went and bought one school bus and began driving it. And just as soon as I had enough money saved up to buy a second school bus, I did that. And my grandmother, who was retired, was my very first employee. I don't even know that I can call her my employee because I didn't pay her. But I was blessed over the next 10 years with the help of my grandmother and so many others, to build a company of over 550 employees, based mostly in the Hudson Valley. We provided school transportation services to many different districts, one right here in Ulster County, the Marlborough School District. I currently serve on the SUNY Orange Foundation as a board member, and besides all that crazy stuff, I've got the most beautiful family in the world. I'm so blessed. I have a wife who has great taste in everything but men, and I've got 3 beautiful children. My son, who's 5 years old, just started kindergarten, a daughter who's 3, and a baby, a girl who will be 1 year coming up just next month. Look, I'm running because, like many of you, I'm concerned about the direction of our state. I look at things like dangerous bail reform that was passed this year that puts our families at risk. And as a business owner, I understand firsthand the struggles that businesses face. So I look forward to bringing fresh ideas and new ideas to the conversation from the perspective of a father and a farmer and a business owner. And I look forward to your questions today.
All right, and Jen Metzger. Jen?
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I want to thank David and Ward and the Chamber for hosting this forum this morning. It has been an incredible honor to represent Ulster County in these last 2 years, the first state senator from Ulster in over half a century. I understand the needs of our communities, having served in local government for many years and headed up a nonprofit here. As your senator, I have been working to make sure Albany understands and responds to those needs. We are facing an incredibly challenging time right now, but we have a lot of opportunity, and I want to make sure that we build back our local economy in a strong and sustainable way. The COVID-19 pandemic has been absolutely devastating for our small businesses and our nonprofits. My office has been working nonstop for months now, helping literally thousands of people try to navigate the red tape and get the assistance they need to get through this time. I play a very important role in the state Senate, standing up for our communities, for our people, for our towns, our small villages, our small cities. We need this seat we need to have a seat at the table to make sure that we get our fair share of resources and build back stronger from this crisis. During my first term in office, I have brought back resources and programs to Ulster County to meet needs as diverse as mental health support for our veterans, for clean electric bus infrastructure, for UCAT, LED streetlights for our municipalities, rail trail expansion projects, and needed equipment for our first responders. I will continue to stand for our communities in Albany and be a strong leader for you all. This is an incredibly challenging time. I know we'll get through this together, and I look forward to continue to serve you in another term. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you to our candidates for their opening comments. We will move on to questions at this point, and we're going to rotate the order of answering. So for question 1, Jen Metzger will go first, followed by Mike Martucci, followed by Michelle Hinchey, and then Rich Amedure. And this is, as many of the questions have been already pandemic-related, businesses across all of New York State and locally are really struggling to keep their doors open today. What can New York State do? What will you do as an elected legislator to help these small businesses during their most difficult time in their history? And we will again begin with Jen Metzger. Jen?
So as I said in my opening statement, really in these months, my efforts have been focused entirely on just direct help to our small businesses, to our nonprofits, to their employees to get the help that they need. This has been a really tough time. I mean, we've had federal loan programs that have been made available that have helped many of our businesses, but they need much more support. My view is that we actually have to think about economic development and how we spend our development dollars in New York State. We really need to be focused on retaining our local businesses, helping them get through, and expanding. When I served in local government for many years in Rosendale, I remember early on walking down Main Street and thinking every single storefront virtually was boarded up at that time. This was about 15 years or so ago, 15, 20 years ago or so. People would look at me strangely as I walked down the street. No one walked on Main Street. But I worked really hard in local government, really capitalizing on all of the advantages we had in Rosendale, capitalizing on our natural, recreational, and cultural assets to revitalize our downtown. And we've had huge success there. And I really feel like we need to follow the exact same strategy for Ulster County. We have an incredible wealth of innovative people, resources, natural, cultural, and we have to focus on those assets, invest wisely. We have the right ingredients. It's putting it all together the right way. And I'll continue to do this work for Ulster County.
Mike?
So as a small business owner, certainly doing business in New York, absent of COVID, is a big challenge, and COVID-19 has just put in extra relief the struggles that our businesses face. First, I think that our businesses deserve some good guidance from Albany. And when I say that, what I mean is, right now, our state faces a tremendous budget deficit, and undoubtedly tremendous cuts are going to be affecting businesses and communities across our state. And with such little guidance from Albany in terms of what that impact is going to be, it's very difficult for our businesses to plan. The second thing is, in the state budget, there are billions of dollars every year that are allocated for economic development. And these dollars aren't spent well. Our last few state budgets include billions and billions of dollars of corporate welfare. And that money would be much better spent in our small businesses, because as a small business owner, I'm concerned that you won't walk down a Main Street in any of our communities and recognize it when this pandemic is over. I would support things like a reemployment tax credit that would allow our small businesses to bring more of their employees back to work. I think that's just a very simple and practical thing that we can do. And second, as a small business owner, one of the biggest obstructions for me employing additional people in the state and meeting with success as a business was dealing with the state's very broken workers' comp system. So again, I think that some of these problems that have existed for businesses for many, many years have only been put in additional relief with respect to all that's going on with COVID. But some of those challenges have not changed. And there are very practical things that the state can and should be doing to help our small businesses right now.
All right. Michelle?
This has been a tremendously challenging time, as everybody knows, and especially you. I agree that we need to give our businesses real, tangible guidance and the tools to be successful in this moment, especially as the weather begins to change. Outdoor dining, we need to make sure that people can stay open. We need to make sure that there's proper PPE available for our businesses. We need to make sure that we have heat lamps and other things that we can do to extend that season and make sure people have the resources to stay open and to keep serving the public. We also need to change, I think, the small business tax structure. It is expensive to do business here, and that's something, in our small communities and upstate communities who our small businesses are the lifeblood and the backbones of our towns. How do we make sure that we're incentivizing them to open and to stay here? We're seeing a lot of empty storefronts just here in Kingston, and we're seeing that people are buying them and then they're remaining vacant, right? How in this moment are we incentivizing and encouraging people to open businesses in these vacant storefronts? That's tremendously important. We also need to work hand in hand with the federal government and our state government to make sure that we are getting both the resources, the funding, and the support, and again, the guidance that we need for our small businesses to open in a real, meaningful, and long-term way. This is a tremendously difficult time, and anything that we can do to continue to push our small businesses forward is tremendously important.
Okay. And Rich?
Our world dramatically changed a couple months ago. The business climate was improving. The national climate was actually getting better. Employment was at all-time record highs, and then the COVID epidemic came. It definitely took the wind out of the sails of this economy, and now we're at historic lows and historic unemployment at this point. The initial reaction by the Senate was to give the governor extreme power, an executive order, so he could make the decisions that needed to be made, which was the right decision at the time. We're 6 months into the crisis now. We need to reevaluate that executive authority he has now. We are hearing that 60% of our restaurants are going to be closed by the end of the year if we don't do something. There is an ability for people to make a decision for themselves, but business owners need to be allowed to open their business, performing the proper functions that the government should provide those guidelines, and then they should help enforce those guidelines. But if we don't get our small businesses open soon and get the regulation from government off their backs, we're not going to have small businesses to worry about. And is it really a time that we need to spend $100 million in publicly funded elections when school districts are getting 20% cuts to their pay, to their allotted money that they were told they were going to have? Let's get the spending of the state under control, and let's advocate for some federal funding of our local communities and school districts.
All right, and there is up to 1 minute available for any of the candidates who would like to rebut comments made by others. So Jen, Mike, Michelle.
Sure. I'd just like to mention a point about taxes. For the 2 years that I've been in office, each year we have made income tax cuts for the middle class. And one of my priorities coming into office, and continues to remain a top priority, is to address property taxes in New York. We've got a really broken system of funding education in New York. We have been reducing our share of funding at the state level. The burden has fallen on our small businesses and our residents who can't afford their homes. It's also created great inequality in educational resources available to kids across New York State and throughout my district. So this has been a top priority. We made the tax cap.
Sorry for that interruption. We were just, as we were hearing comments about the broadband in Ulster County, we lost our internet service. So we are back. And Rich, I think we'll go back to you because I do believe we missed your comments, or some of them at least, in response and rebuttal to the first question.
Okay.
Did we lose it between Mike and me, or before?
I don't think Michelle, that's what they said. It was after Mike.
Okay, I'm sorry. Michelle.
Thank you, and thank you for that, Rich. As I was talking about the need for infrastructure, and specifically broadband infrastructure, as Ward said, we lost the internet, so it is quite timely in our comments. We need to invest in our infrastructure. Clearly, we cannot have strong or robust economic development if we are not investing in infrastructure most importantly, broadband service. We see it across the 46th district, but we see it across upstate New York in general. It's clear many of our communities have been left behind. The fact that in 2020 we are trying to have a live stream event and we are cut off is ridiculous, and so that's something that we desperately need to invest in. And as we talk about the revenue measures, I support creative revenue measures to make sure that we can bring money into our state. I support legalizing cannabis. I thought it would happen this year. Excited for the possibility of next year to make sure that we have $300 million coming into the state to start addressing many of the revenue issues that we talked about, but primarily from an economic development perspective. How it could revolutionize upstate New York from the economy perspective is really exciting to me.
Okay. And now Rich.
Okay. I appreciate Senator Metzger speaking of lowering income taxes. But the Senate Democrats this year have eliminated the STAR program, which effectively increases your property taxes. So if you decrease one tax to increase other taxes, the net effect is still the same. And also with broadband, there was $500 million approved for broadband, which allowed it to help expand it across upstate New York. Senate Democrats this year have also increased taxes on broadband, which effectively takes that $500 million and makes it worth less. As far as marijuana, we are kind of late to that game. Canada has it legalized. Massachusetts has it legalized. So there's always these rosy projections of income, of forecasts of revenue. Will they really come? Probably not. But it's still something we should look into.
Okay, our next question will be answered first by Rich Amedure, then Michelle, then Mike Martucci, then Jen. And we're actually combining 2 or 3 questions here. There's a lot of concern among local residents that because of the pandemic, there's going to be a dramatic impact on local taxes at the government level, at the school district level. So what can the state do? How can the state help our localities? That's where we pay our property taxes to ensure that we are not taxed out of our homes. So we begin with Rich.
Well, that's the problem, right? We spoke about it a little bit earlier. We definitely are looking at massive cuts in promised state budget aid to municipalities and school districts. In the governor's budget this year, they inserted a caveat that the director of budget could, at his discretion, reduce spending to each locality that was promised a certain amount of money. That bothers me. We have an unelected official, bureaucrat in Albany, that is now telling the districts how much money they're going to receive. That was quietly slipped in there so that they had the ability to do this. But we also need to save money on things that we don't need. I spoke about the $100 million expenditure for public financed elections. Do we really need to publicly finance elections right now when we have other priorities for our spending? It is going to be a difficult year, there's no doubt about it, and we are going to need state and federal aid to help local municipalities and school districts out of this crisis.
Michelle.
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, we need to change our small business tax structure. There's also a bill by Senator Kaplan that I support that talks about doing just that. We have to take
So welcome back. This is the Ulster County Regional Chamber of Commerce Meet the Candidates event, and we sincerely apologize for internet issues we're having, but we'll get back to our questions. And as we mentioned a minute ago, we are combining 2 or 3 questions we received on Facebook this morning having to do with the state budget and the trickle down to the local economies. So what will you do as an elected representative to assist the localities, local government, as well as school districts as they try to balance their budget? And I think we missed going to Michelle first, so we'll go to you.
Sure. I think we were talking about taxes too. I think as we mentioned before, we need to change our small business tax structure. It's tremendously important. We should not be putting the onus on our small businesses who are, as Ward said earlier, the backbone of our communities and our small towns. We need to make sure that it's affordable for people to start and sustain small businesses in our community. I also support decoupling education funding from our property taxes.
It keeps cutting off. I'm so sorry. I just wanted to notify someone.
Thank you.
We're aware.
We need to make sure that decoupling property tax, education funding from our property taxes. We need to make sure that everyone, regardless of where they live, their kids and students can get a decent quality education, and that we're not forcing people to pay into that when we should be funding it more at a state level.
Okay, and Mike?
So the first obligation that we have is to address the tremendous fraud, waste, and abuse that exists in the bloated $180 billion budget that this state has. Rich had mentioned before the $100 million that was set aside to fund political campaigns. I mean, effectively, this is money that's going to be used to put junk mail in your mailbox and fill your voicemail with robocalls. We also look at things in the state budget like $4 billion of economic development money that's set aside that create very few upstate jobs. So as I look forward, as a small business owner myself, and certainly someone who's supporting a family here in New York, paying that heavy property tax burden as well, the things that I look toward that I believe is important to maintain is, again, before we ask any New Yorker to pay more money in taxes, before we increase the cost of living on anybody living here, we have an obligation to go through the state budget, take out those items that are tremendously wasteful and that are not good use of our taxpayer dollars. And that will be the first and very important step in helping address the spending problem that the state has.
And Jen?
Thank you, Ward. So first off, I keep hearing about this $100 million for public financing. So just so everyone knows, there's no public financing in New York right now, and therefore no $100 million being spent on it. Look, we have a constitutional obligation in New York State to balance our budget. We cannot spend more money than we take in revenues. This has been an absolutely incredibly challenging time right now. This pandemic and the economic contraction has reduced state revenues by an estimated up to $15 billion this year. I have been fighting very hard. It's at this time when we actually need more resources for education, more resources for hospitals, for healthcare, more resources to address substance use disorder. We've been seeing just in Ulster County alone a tripling of opioid-related overdoses. This is a stressful time. This is a time of need, and I've been fighting to prevent cuts, and we thankfully we were heard and pushed back successfully on any cuts to education in September. I believe we absolutely have to raise revenue in a way that does not in any way burden our middle class and working families, does not burden our small businesses, and we can do that. We have to be willing to place modest taxes on multimillionaires. We have to be willing to pass my bill to put a tax on stock buybacks, which is frankly unproductive investment by corporations that buy back their own stock instead of investing in their workforce and their companies. So we have to look to those types of solutions because we just can't afford to make deep cuts to education, healthcare, to community needs that we need more than ever. Thank you.
All right, and a 1-minute rebuttal. Same order. We'll start with Rich.
I listened to a report the other day by E.J. McMahon. He was talking to Alan Chartock on WAMC. He was talking about the budget crisis that we're in. They had a $6 billion. They knew it was going to be a problem in the coming year before the COVID epidemic hit. In February, the governor, instead of projecting there was going to be a decrease in revenue coming in for the rest of the year, actually increased revenue projections.
And go ahead. And we're doing the 1-minute rebuttal, and Rich will go first. Rich?
It's very difficult to keep your train of thought when the internet keeps going out, so I'll go a different point. But the government's obligation is to create the conditions so that the citizens can create the wealth or pursue happiness on whatever direction that they choose. The problem is the state of New York is not doing it. They passed a fundamentally unbalanced budget last year, had some issues. They knew there was going to be some big issues coming up, and that was before coronavirus. Coronavirus came up, and it just made an absolute mess of the budget. We understand This was an unforeseen circumstance. But that's why you have to be fiscally responsible at all times.
Michelle.
Yeah. The fact of the matter is, if and when any of us are elected, it's our responsibility to create solutions and to come up with solutions for this incredible budget crisis that we are in. I agree with Senator Metzger that we do not pass any type of taxes that affect middle class or working class families, but the people who have made an additional $4 billion during this pandemic, while the rest of us are struggling to put food on the table, who don't know if we're going to have a job in 2 weeks or if our businesses are going to stay open, is something that we have to ask people to do. Looking at creative revenue measures that do not affect the middle class, but will make sure that we have revenue coming into the state that we have not tapped yet, is incredibly important. And we need to work with our federal government and really push them to make sure that we get some funding as well.
1 minute to Mike.
So I think one of the points that's really missed here is the fact that our state budget problems didn't begin with the virus. Rich had called out that there was a functional deficit in the state budget, a $6 billion functional deficit in the state budget. And at the end of the day, the best solution that's been presented here, it talks about raising taxes. And raising taxes isn't the answer. Raising taxes is what got us in this problem in the first place. It's not going to benefit our businesses. It's not going to help with tremendous unemployment numbers that our state currently faces. So, from my perspective, very simply, raising taxes during a global pandemic isn't the answer, and it's not what our state needs for its economy to get back on its feet.
And Jen.
So the budget gap that we came in with before the pandemic is driven primarily by growth in Medicaid costs. We want to rein in Medicaid costs. We need to create good paying jobs, and that's where our focus has to be. And I have been working and continuing to work to help shift us to a clean energy economy in our region, in our state, that will create thousands of good paying jobs, good paying trades jobs throughout the economy. So that's where the focus should be. And that's also part of the solution to coming out stronger and more resilient from this pandemic and this economic crisis.
Okay, our next question, again, is a combination of 2 or 3, and will be answered in this order. Mike Martucci, then Jen Metzger, Rich Amedure, and then Michelle Hinchey. And it has to do with bail reform, which was probably one of the biggest state stories in the news pre-pandemic. Give us your perspective on bail reform, the efforts to adjust bail reform, and what your plans would be if elected in January to further amend or repeal. Again, we'll start with Mike.
So I've been pretty outspoken on the issue of bail reform. From my perspective, bail reform is one of the most dangerous pieces of public policy that has been enacted here in New York. It doesn't take anyone who's a criminal justice expert to know. Every single day we read stories in the news about individuals who commit crimes. Many of those crimes are violent crimes that are released immediately back out onto the streets. Only to reoffend. And this has absolutely fueled a cycle of violence that we read and hear and see about every day. No community has been immune to this. My opponent, Senator Metzger, supported bail reform the first time, and the state took up an effort to fix bail reform. Bail reform was not fixed. Only a set of cosmetic changes were made that still allows individuals who do things like sell drugs in our communities and fill our streets with poison to continue to be released from prison, only to go back out in the street and do the same thing. And as I said, this isn't a problem that's only facing New York City, but a problem that's facing every community across our entire state. So should I be lucky enough to be elected, my pledge is that I will work to repeal dangerous bail reform and work with law enforcement and work with the judges around our state and our prosecutors to come up with a plan that will really work. Because essentially what's missing from the first bail reform, and again in this set of changes that were made, was judicial discretion. And restoring judicial discretion is necessary in order to make sure that the most dangerous people are not on the streets to victimize and re-victimize our families.
Jen?
There has been a very shameful blaming of absolutely any crime on bail reform during this time, and shameful fear-mongering when our society is already under such stress. The fact is, our criminal justice system was broken and not fair. And in all my conversations with law enforcement, there was agreement on that fact. When you have somebody like Harvey Weinstein, a rapist who can pay to get out make bail and wait out his day at court in the comfort of his mansion, while somebody who steals a loaf of bread from a store and can't make $100 bail, a couple $100 bail, and has to wait out that time for his day in court in prison, that is a broken and unfair system. It shouldn't be based on how much money you have. So yes, I supported those reforms. I met with police, I met with DAs, I listened very closely as these reforms were being rolled out. And there were reasonable amendments that needed to be made, which I championed. Frankly, I came back to Albany and pushed for these changes, and we made them. We have a fair and safe system in New York, and I stand by it.
Rich.
This is probably the issue that pushed me over the edge from being in the state police to running for this seat. This is the most misguided legislation I've ever seen in my life, and that's just not in my opinion. David Soares, who was the chairman of the District Attorneys Association, says the Senate never reached out for me to help write bail reform. To write a law that fundamentally changes the entire criminal law in New York State without incorporating law enforcement and the district attorneys who have to physically enforce the law is just bad business. I was a carpenter at one point. If you tell me, oh, be a carpenter, but I'm going to take away your tools, your hammer, your saws, and your nails, what could I do? I could stand there and watch things happen. We've taken the ability to do our job as police and keep the public safe. The police will be fine, but the problem is it's made every individual in New York State less safe. And the other problem is people are getting out on the streets. David Soares did say, I knew who was in jail. He goes, every week I would check the roster and make sure nobody was wasting away in jail when they shouldn't have been there. So upstate, the system was not broken. In Rikers Island, was there a problem? Sure, there was a problem down there. But it was a fix to fix Rikers Island that fundamentally destroyed upstate New York criminal justice. We need, if I get up there, I will advocate to repeal this as soon as possible. This law has done nothing for us but make everybody less safe, and it's got to end.
Michelle.
I agree with Senator Metzger that the system was broken, right? We should not have people's freedoms based on the amount of money that they can pay. When the turn of the year, when these things went into effect, I met with Dave Clegg, District Attorney Dave Clegg, as well as Sheriff Figueroa to talk about this and to hear what they were saying and to hear what they were thinking and what their opinions were. And it was clear that pretty much everybody agreed with that fact. And there were some reforms and things that needed to be changed to be looked at. But also, if there's anything moving forward, the only way we're going to have those conversations is by having people in the majority conference looking at things like the charging structures. We need to have a criminal justice system that keeps people safe while also protects our community and allows people to live an equal life regardless of the circumstance that they have. And so, again, the only way that we're going to be able to continue to review this is by having voices who are in the room, who are seeing these issues, talking with community members, and bringing that feedback back to the table where those decisions are being made.
Question is about bail reform. 1 minute rebuttals. We begin with Mike.
So I completely disagree with Senator Metzger that this is shameful blaming. The reason it's not shameful blaming is because there are real victims. I think of stories that I can remember, just local stories. How do you tell Lisa Colon from Newburgh, whose intimate partner was arrested for domestic violence, immediately released, and then she was stabbed and her house was set on fire? How do you tell her this is shameful blaming? How do you look at someone like a Sean Davis of Troy, who was shot at 11 years old by someone who was released from jail for burglary? There are real victims here. So this is not shameful blaming. This is terrible public policy that puts people at risk.
Jen.
Judges still have tools for violent crimes. They can still remand, they can still set bail, or they can release, and they have choices. And we have yet to see actual data supporting that it is these reforms. Judges make choices all the time. They have that discretion to do that. And it is absolutely the case that absolutely everything has been blamed on bail reform. And I want to point out that additionally, that I fought very hard to get additional resources. In this last budget, we got $40 million in funding to help localities implement, to help law enforcement, to help DAs implement the criminal justice reforms. When I was in local government, I was the liaison to the police commission. I worked closely with our police, and I continue to work closely with our police departments and stay in touch with our chiefs. And I know what resources they need, and I continue to fight for them.
Rich, 1 minute.
There's so many things. A minute's not enough. But judicial discretion, it's a joke now. You can't arraign anybody. First of all, you have no ability to arraign on most crimes. Most of us are never going to be victims of a felon in our life, but misdemeanors happen every day. We are put in situations where we arrest somebody, we can't arraign him, he's intoxicated, we can't release him. What do? You've given us no choice. And everybody always says, well, we talked to the chiefs of police, we talked to this one. Talk to the rank and file police officers. They know this is broken. We all know this is broken. There was fixes we could have done. This $40 million that Senator Metzger talks about is a one-shot deal from the DA's office in New York City. Yeah. It's a one-shot. It's not going to be repeating money. So what are you going to do next year? DAs were quitting in droves because the discovery law was so onerous when they put it out there. They couldn't meet the discovery deadlines and get the cases to trial, so they were losing any case they could.
Michelle.
Yeah. I'll say the 40 million is repeating money, but we need to look at the charging structures, right? I mean, there are things that we can agree that domestic violence and victims of people who have committed domestic violence and other of those crimes are people who should be, we can look at other ways that we can make sure that they are still held. Judges can look at them and still hold in jail. This is something that we need to make sure that we have an equitable criminal justice system, again, that keeps people safe while not disenfranchising more people in our community. We can continue to have the conversation once we look at the numbers and once we see these reforms in place about what we need to change and how to make this better, and continue to have meaningful and quick and imminent conversations with people in law enforcement. But the only way we're going to do that is if we have partners at the state level from upstate in the room advocating for those changes.
Okay, and we are going to allow for closing statements at this time, and we'll give 2 minutes each, and we will begin as we did at the start of our program. Michelle Hinchey will be first. Michelle?
Oh, okay. Well, again, thank you so much. It's been great to be there with this forum, even with our technical challenges, which just reaffirm even more the need for investment in our upstate infrastructure. When we launched our campaign over a year ago, we did it with a listening tour across all 5 counties that make up the 46th district, because it was incredibly important for me and for our team to hear the issues and to hear from the people and the residents of this district and know what they want. And for me, we've been building a strong coalition. We have labor organizers and law enforcement and activists and committee members and small business owners who have joined our team because they know that we are the right voice in Albany for our district. This has been an incredible privilege to have these conversations and to meet people across our district. We need to make sure that we have more upstate voices in the majority conference advocating for all of the issues we talked about here and more, for economic development, for green job creation, to protect our natural resources that we all so much depend on here. It's the lifeblood of our economy as well, to work with our small businesses, to keep our community safe, and to keep it affordable. We need to make sure that these are things that we are talking about, these are things that we are advocating for, and the only way that we can make meaningful change and meaningful reforms in upstate is if we have upstate voices working together in the room to do just that. So thank you so much for giving us this forum and for being able to answer your questions. And again, if you have any others, you can always reach out to us directly. Thank you very much.
Rich.
I want to thank the Chamber. Thank you, Ward, and thank you for for making me feel like I'm at home, because this is about how I have service at my house, so the broadband falling out every day. I spent my career serving the community, and I'm excited to continue serving in this capacity. Under one-party rule in New York State, we've had some dangerous legislation passed as the bail and discovery reform law that we talked about. We tax way too much. We spend way too much. It's time for a new approach in Albany. We have an unfriendly business climate. that prohibits the growth and opportunity of our next generation. Every year, droves of people are leaving the state of New York for better opportunities elsewhere. I know we can do better. I'm running for my family. I'm running for your family. I'm running for our small businesses. I'm running for our family farms that are facing dire circumstances with some of the new regulations that have been thrust upon them. So again, I know we can do better. I look forward to being your senator from the 46th District. Thank you.
All right, Mike, we go to you.
Well, thank you, Ward, and to the folks here at the Chamber and your many partners that made today happen. As I had said earlier, the reason I'm at this table is because I'm a father and a husband and a small business owner, and I see that the direction that New York State's headed. And what's very clear to me, and what's so clear to so many of my friends and neighbors who live in this region, is that the state is headed in the wrong direction. As a small business owner, I struggled firsthand with all the challenges that many of the viewers struggle with respect to employing people here in our state, and just the crushing regulation and taxes that make it so difficult and really, on some days, impossible to be successful here. And I look forward to being a voice for small businesses, a voice for families. I'm so proud to have collected so much support in the campaign, which certainly has been different than, I think, any other campaign season for all of us here. But I have the support of the NFIB, which is something I'm very proud of, and so many law enforcement unions. So my pledge is that should I be lucky enough to be the senator, I will be the voice for small business in Albany because it's who I am. It's what I've done. I've created over 550 local jobs. I've dealt firsthand, again, with the struggles of running and owning a business. And as a father, I'm really concerned about the direction that things are going in New York State. So I hope to earn your trust and support as we get close to Election Day. And unfortunately, because of the technical difficulties today, we didn't get to, I'm sure, many of the questions you had. So please feel free to reach out if there was something that wasn't discussed.
All right, and Jen.
Thank you, Ward. I ran for office in 2018 because I felt like people weren't getting the opportunities that they should, that our small towns and rural communities were being neglected by Albany, and that many of our representatives were more interested in who was giving them money than who they represented. Since I've taken office, I've held 45 community roundtables, resource fairs, and town halls around the district, meeting residents and small businesses where they are at so I can best advocate for our communities. I have seen 26 of my bills signed into law in the 20 months I've been in office, all of them passing with wide bipartisan support. It is not about partisan labels and politics. It is about getting things done. We need results, and one big area where we need results, which we have seen not just throughout this pandemic, but during this forum, has been in the area of broadband. I was very, very proud that my bill to close the broadband gap in New York passed in just this past July, passed the legislature nearly unanimously. We can build back stronger and more resilient. I look forward to be able to continue my work to build on the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act that we passed this year and accelerate the shift to a clean energy economy, to continue my work as Senate Ag Chair, to expand market opportunities for our small farms right here in New York, to expand value-added production and that just overall support our small farming economy, which is so important in Ulster. I am very proud that my bill to create a framework in New York State for the sale, processing, and growing of hemp has passed and is in law and is opening up new business opportunities. I've got to stop now because I'm out of time, but we have a lot of opportunity in Ulster County. We have all the right ingredients here, and I look forward to working with you all in a second term. Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks to all of our candidates today, Michelle Hinchey, Rich Amedure, Mike Martucci, Jen Metzger. We are very, very blessed to have such wonderful candidates for office. Normally, we'd have 300 people standing and applauding all four of you now. So imagine that in your minds. But thank you all so much. And don't forget to vote. If you don't do it early, do it on Tuesday, November the 3rd is the date. Please vote. And listen, join us back here next month. We're going to do the same thing over again with our congressional candidates. Well, maybe not exactly the same, but similar. Antonio Delgado, Kyle Vanderwater will be our guest speakers in October. Thanks again to our sponsor today, Nuvance. And just a couple reminders, the Ulster County Regional Chamber of Commerce is especially grateful to our amazing corporate sponsors for the significant contribution they make to the chamber. As a result of the commitment they make to us, your chamber can support 1,000 local businesses and more to help them work and keep our local economy strong. Please support these local businesses, our corporate sponsors that are supporters of your Chamber of Commerce. I always try to end on good news. I think it's a great way to, in spite of what's going on around us in this world, look for the bright light. Number one, for those of you who are Yankee baseball fans, for instance. Last night, a big 12-3 win, and so it's just one more step to another World Series ho-hum. But congratulations. It's a great, great feel. And, you know, sports can be a very pleasant diversion from what's happening. Public schools are reopening. That's good news. It's good news for students. It's better news for parents, right? So congratulations on that front. You may remember at our very first virtual breakfast meeting 5 months ago, during the Good News segment, we promised that you should watch the HBO series shot locally last year. Well, Mark Ruffalo won the Emmy for Outstanding Lead Actor in a Limited Series or Movie, recognized for the dual roles he had in the HBO miniseries. I know this much is true. Watch it if you have not yet seen it. It's amazing. Good news also, the Chamber's amazing Facebook group, Ulster Eateries United, as of today has more than 11,000 members, thanks to our administrator, Jess Davis, among others, for helping to make this really an important part of our local everyday check-in on Facebook. Thanks to all the restaurants and the delis and the diners and everybody in Ulster County who supported our local eateries for the past 6 months. And on that note, this reminder, as David mentioned earlier today, we're going to be celebrating the strength of our community next month at the Chamber's annual Business Recognition Award celebration. Join us virtually as we recognize all the men and women and businesses and not-for-profit organizations and our partners in government at the village, town, city, and county level who brought us through the worst of this pandemic. We are Ulster United. That is our program for today. Thank you so much, and special thanks to our great friends at Radio Kingston, Cale Capishillan, Jimmy Buff. Thanks for all you do for Radio Kingston and our community. Until next time, be well and stay safe. Thank you.